Time to take care of your own place, Grandpa.
They voted me out of my own family. Tonight, I am voting back.
He slid a folded mortgage statement across the table like a waiter dropping off a check. The room fell quiet. My fork paused midair, green bean casserole going cold. He didn't look at me, just pushed it with 2 fingers like it was trash. "Time to take care of your own place, Grandpa," he said, loud enough for the others to hear. Then he smiled, not nervously, not apologetically, just certain. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let us know in the comments if you've ever had someone forget what you sacrificed for them. My name is Edward Marino. I'm 68 years old, and I've lived in Pittsburgh my entire life. If you stand in my driveway in the dead of winter and squint through the naked tree limbs, you can just make out the U.S. Steel Tower stabbing up into the gray sky. That tower was my compass for 42 years. I was a millwright at the Edgar Thomson Works, keeping the ancient machinery alive long after anyone believed it should still run. I spent decades inside a roar of furnaces and steel, sweat and grease baked into my skin until no soap could scrub it out. I retired 3 years ago. Maria, my wife, my anchor, had begged me to finally step away. We were supposed to travel, see the coast, maybe take the Amtrak west just to say we'd done it. She wanted to eat oysters in Maine. I wanted to see her laugh in a city we didn't know. But cancer came faster than we planned for. 3 winters ago, she was gone, and the house got very quiet. Work boots by the door with no reason to move them. This Christmas dinner wasn't even supposed to happen. Not here, at least. Not in this house that wasn't mine. We were at my daughter Angela's place, though really it's Martin's kingdom if you ask him. Upper St. Clair, wide streets lined with brick colonials, mailbox lights glowing like candles. The house itself is a polished monument to suburban achievement. Vaulted ceilings with crown molding, recessed lighting you can control from an iPad, pillows on every chair, so many you have to move 3 just to sit down. The whole place smells faintly of cinnamon candles and whatever polish the cleaning service uses. It's different now. Everything's different since Angela married Martin. I used to host. Every single year, Maria and I would drag out a beat-up folding table into the garage, slap a red plastic tablecloth on it, and fire up an old space heater that hummed like a jet engine. The kids loved it. They'd beg to sit out there among the tools and oil stains, cheeks pink from the cold, because somehow it felt like an adventure. Maria would wear that Christmas apron with flour smudged across it, laughing as she pulled pies from the oven. We were cramped, but it was ours. When she died, the center shifted. Somehow I went from, "Dad, you make the best stuffing," to, "Maybe Martin's kitchen is more convenient." So I didn't fight it. I showed up on time. I brought a bottle of wine. I wore the sweater they'd bought me last year, red with a cheap reindeer stitched across the chest, and the store tag still dangling the day they wrapped it. I smiled and told everyone I was fine. I tried to be the easy guest. It's what Maria would have wanted. Tonight I sat next to my grandson, Evan. Once he was a little boy who'd crawl into my lap after dinner and fall asleep while Maria read from a battered Christmas book with torn pages. I'd feel the soft weight of him breathing against my chest. Safe, warm, mine. Now he's 20-something, sharp haircut, loafers, a gold watch catching the light every time he lifts his phone to check a message. Oh, his smile tonight isn't warm. It's polite, detached. Like letting me be here is an act of generosity. And the worst part? I paid for this house. The paper he slid toward me said in crisp black ink, "Total remaining balance, $0." Below that, my name, my signature. A final payment processed last week. I recognized the transaction. I made it myself, quietly, proudly, out of the retirement fund Maria and I built since the 80s. We'd pinched pennies, skipped vacations, Stretch paychecks so one day our family could breathe easy. I hadn't touched that account even after she died. Until this. Because I thought, at least they'll be secure. I stared down at the statement. My chest hollowed out. Then I looked at Evan. Is this some kind of joke? He didn't flinch, just lifted his champagne glass and sipped. We figured it's time for you to move on. You've done enough. We've got it from here. Martin, sitting at the head of the table, with the turkey carving knife gleaming in his hand, chimed in. It's just not sustainable for you to keep contributing, Ed. You should focus on enjoying retirement. I blinked. The word hit like a slap. Contributing? My voice cracked. I paid off your house. Angela reached across, fingers touching Martin's wrist, in that way people do when they're worried their partner might get too blunt. Dad, don't make this harder than it needs to be. My chest burned, not with clean anger, something murkier, like acid eating through the lining of my stomach. I glanced around the room. The hardwood floors beneath our feet? I'd helped install those, sweating through an August weekend while Martin supervised. The chandelier glittering above the table. Maria and Angela picked it out together, giggling like teenagers in the showroom. That kitchen island everyone bragged about? $11,000, paid when Martin scoffed that the builder's version looked cheap. There isn't a single inch of this house without my fingerprints hidden beneath the glossy finish. Evan leaned back, arms folded, casual in a way only the young and entitled can be. I talked to Mom and Dad. We're all on the same page. It's probably time you think about downsizing, maybe a senior condo or something. From his blazer, he slid another paper, a glossy brochure, Heritage Pines, active retirement living for the golden years. Happy white-haired couples smiled on the cover, frozen in some marketing fantasy of shuffleboard and wine tastings. My jaw locked, and suddenly the whole room blurred. Every skipped lunch so I could put an extra 20 into savings. Every patched sock. Every furnace we limped through one more winter because next year we'll replace it. Maria's quiet pride when she'd say, someday this will mean something to them. Now they were handing me a ticket to shuffleboard and shuttle service. Martin carved another slice of turkey, the knife thudding against the board like a gavel. Let's not make tonight uncomfortable. Evan's worked hard on this. Let's just eat. I stood, slowly. My chair scraped the hardwood with a sound that silenced even the clink of silverware. I picked up the folded mortgage paper and the brochure. Tell me, Evan, I said, voice low but steady, do they let you keep your dignity at Heritage Pines, or is that extra? Angela's breath caught, sharp, a gasp that filled the space. Martin's jaw tightened. Evan scoffed, a sound too young, too smug for the moment. I nodded once, turned toward the door. My hand trembled, but I didn't let them see it. You voted, I said over my shoulder, quiet. Final. I see that now, loud and clear. I lifted the mortgage statement. This was your ballot. Then I opened the door and stepped into the Pennsylvania night. The cold hit like a wall, sharp, metallic. Snow hadn't started yet, but the air was heavy with it, the kind that tastes like iron on your tongue. You can feel when a storm is waiting. The sky goes still, holding its breath. My truck door creaked the way it always does. Inside, it smelled like motor oil and pine. Maria's favorite air freshener still clipped to the vent, long faded but stubborn. I sat there for a long minute, watching their house through the windshield. Light spilled from the windows, golden and soft, silhouettes moving, laughter breaking free once they thought the old man was gone. I was silent, but not empty. The engine turned over with a low rumble. My hands rested on the steering wheel, veins rising like rivers under thin skin. The road ahead stretched dark and empty, but in the rearview mirror I caught one last detail, a small, almost imperceptible flicker. The porch light, the same one I'd rewired last summer when Martin balked at the electrician's quote. It blinked once, weak, like it was winking. Everything breaks eventually, even the illusions built on the backs of people like me. I shifted into drive. There was one stop I needed to make before home. The bank itself was dark, closed for the holiday. But I didn't need the building. I had the app, I had the account number, I had the password. I had 42 years of sweat turned into savings, and in about 90 seconds, I was going to take back everything. The road home cut through South Hills like a scar, a thin gray ribbon carved between dark slopes and the silent shells of shuttered steel plants. Street lamps glowed weak and yellow, catching in the drizzle that wanted to become snow, but hadn't yet committed. My wipers squeaked across the windshield in tired rhythm, smearing mist into streaks before clearing it again. I drove slowly, not because the pavement was slick, but because my head was heavier than my foot. Every green street sign was a small ambush. West Carson Street, where Maria and I once stood in line at the county clerk's office, nervous and laughing to file the permit for the tiny repair shop we'd dreamed might change everything. Arlington Avenue, where a younger me jogged behind a wobbling bike as Evan pedaled furiously, shouting, "You've got it!" before he let go and coasted into the future. Each memory flashed past like an old slide projector, quick, bright, a little too sharp on the edges. By the time I turned into my neighborhood, the drizzle had thickened, a faint silver veil against the headlights. My house waited at the end of the block like an old dog that never learned to leave. Clapboard siding faded from cream to a tired gray. Porch light blinking in uneven code, as if begging for someone to notice its struggle. The grass lay brown and brittle under the winter cold, but the walkway was clear, my shovel, my back, my labor. I killed the engine. The sudden silence made the truck's ticking metal seem loud. I sat there for a breath. 2. My reflection floated in the dark window. Lined face, damp eyes, jaw set harder than I remembered. Then I climbed out and let the cold bite my cheeks awake. Inside, the air was exactly the way I've kept it for years. Faint cedar from the closet, dusted with the smell of old books, and a whisper of Maria's perfume that seems to linger no matter how much I clean. Her photograph hung over the fireplace, blue Sunday dress, hands folded, eyes half amused as if she'd caught the photographer doing something silly. I touched the frame with a knuckle on the way to the kitchen. Just a small, silent hello. The kitchen felt different tonight, not emptier. It's been empty since she left, but clearer, stripped down to purpose. I pulled out a chair and sat. The manila folder waited where I'd left it months ago, edges softened from being moved but never opened. My hand hovered a moment, then I flipped it open. Bank statements, printed hole-punched, lined like soldiers. Receipts from Home Depot, still dusted faintly with sawdust from some project long finished. Email printouts of wire transfers. Notes in Maria's looping handwriting. Don't forget to renew property insurance. Don't let the furnace guy overcharge. Ordinary paper, but to me it was marrow. The story of every sacrifice made quietly so someone else could breathe. Easier. 5 years ago, when Martin lost his job and Angela called crying at midnight, I'd been the hero. Dad, just until we get back on our feet. I know you don't have to, but you're the only one who can. So I said yes. First the down payment, then the kitchen remodel, because the builder's counters looked cheap. Then the mortgage, just for 6 months. Then cars, tuition, taxes, emergencies. The slow creep of need disguised as gratitude. Month after month, the transfer left my account like a quiet bleed. $2,450, then $2,800, then $3,100 when property taxes jumped. I trimmed everything. New clothes became thrift. Vacations vanished. Even fresh fruit was a luxury if it wasn't on sale. My pension fed their dream. My Social Security kept their lights on and left me just enough to keep this place patched together. I traced a finger down the neat rows of numbers. $2,800, $2,800, $2,800, 60 times, every 15th of the month. Automatic. Effortless. I'd turned my life into an autopilot donation machine. On the last page, a curling sticky note in my own shaky winter handwriting. Last time for Maria. But it hadn't been the last time. I leaned back and shut my eyes. Tonight's voices replayed, muffled but sharp. It's probably time you think about downsizing. They're not used to your kind of holiday. Heritage Pines, active retirement living. A sound left my throat. Not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. Dry, hollow. The microwave clock glowed 8:47 p.m. Its blinking colon looked impatient. I reached for my phone. 3 accounts stared back at me. Checking. Savings. Both anemic from years of slow siphon. Then the third, Wells Fargo mortgage ending 7129. Theirs. My lifeline turned into their rope. I tapped manage transfers. The screen asked gently, "Do you want to cancel this automatic payment?" For a heartbeat, I hesitated. Somewhere deep, Maria's voice floated up. "Be kind. Forgive. Family is everything." But over it, louder now, was my own. Dignity. Justice. Enough. "Yes," I tapped. Effective immediately. "Yes." Done. The screen blinked. Refreshed. Transfer canceled. Next due date. Unpaid. I set the phone down, exhaled so hard it sounded like a tire deflating. Silence swelled, thick and honest. Outside, the drizzle had surrendered to snow. Flakes drifted past the window slow as ash in a burn barrel. Streetlight glow caught each one before it disappeared into the dark. For the first time in 5 years, my budget would breathe next month. For the first time since Maria's funeral, I could buy real coffee instead of the bland store brand. For the first time, maybe ever, I didn't feel like a safety net waiting to tear. The phone buzzed. Evan buzzed again. Angela. I let it dance across the table until the sound died. I poured a glass of water, drank slowly. The cold slid down like medicine. Then I walked to the hallway closet, reached high to the fireproof lockbox that's lived there untouched since Maria passed. The metal felt cold, almost reluctant to open. Inside, more papers, stacked and clipped, waiting for the day I finally looked them in the eye. Proof. Canceled checks. Screenshots of texts. "Thanks, Dad. You're a lifesaver." Then later, "Need this covered too, can you?" Eventually, "We really need you to handle this, Dad." Gratitude turning, bit by bit, into expectation. I carried the stack to the kitchen table and began laying it out like a detective. Not rage, method. Calm, precise, undeniable. 1 column for the mortgage, 1 for tuition, 1 for vehicles, 1 for home improvements. With a red pen, I totaled each at the bottom. My hand shook only once. $47,000 down payment. $1,800 kitchen remodel. $160,000 in monthly payments. $7,200 property taxes and unexpected emergencies. Total $24,500. $250,000, give or take the nickels. I stared until the numbers blurred into gray. My elbows found the table, hands clasped, head bowed as if in prayer. I whispered into the empty kitchen, voice rough but clear. "Justice isn't a hammer, it's a ledger." The words hung in the warm light, quiet but solid. Not a threat, a promise. Then, finally, fully awake, I began to plan. The next morning broke hard and white over Pittsburgh. Overnight, snow had swept in and blanketed everything in a flat, chalky stillness. Rooftops softened, power lines sagging under the weight. The streets looked like someone had primed the whole city for a new coat of paint. My old Ford waited in the driveway, hood powdered, windshield glazed with ice. I could already smell the cold, that metallic nose-prickling scent that means winter's not asking permission. I let the truck idle while the heater coughed awake. Back inside, the kitchen smelled of dark roast so strong it could resurrect the dead. Steam rose from the chipped mug in my hands, curling into pale halos in the winter light, slicing through the blinds. On the table beside the mug, my phone buzzed, then again, then again. It rattled against the wood like a trapped insect. Evan. Angela. Martin. Names flashing, vibrating, insistent. I didn't turn it over. I let it dance face down until it went quiet again. Steam blurred the edges of the world for a second. My fingers stayed wrapped around the mug, grounding me in heat. I pulled the lockbox closer and flipped it open again. The metal's chill seeped into my hands. This time I added one last thing to the neat stacks. A letter I'd drafted months ago but never mailed. Not to them. To myself. A ledger masquerading as a letter. Every payment, every remodel, every bailout. Reading it was like reading an obituary for the life Maria and I had planned. Line after line, dollars turned into quiet sacrifices. Maria, her voice was sudden, vivid, the way memories can crash through uninvited. People show you who they are when you stop paying for the mask. She used to say it. After neighbors borrowed tools they never returned. After relatives forgot small debts. I hadn't thought about that phrase in years, but now it came through clearer than the low hum of the refrigerator, louder than the city's distant snowplows. By 9:17 a.m., the landline rang. Not the cell, the landline, the one that rarely makes a sound anymore except for robocalls, and the occasional old friend. Its sudden chime felt almost ghostly. I let it ring twice, then lifted the receiver. "Edward, this is Martin." His voice was taut, like a man clutching a script that keeps slipping. "We're worried about you. That outburst last night wasn't healthy." I let silence stretch for a beat and took a slow sip of coffee. "I left dinner, Martin. That's not an outburst." "Well, the kids were upset. Evan was upset. You embarrassed him." "He embarrassed himself." My tone didn't rise, just landed flat and unshakable. Pause, then a sigh. Long, practiced, the kind men use when they want to sound wounded. "Look, about the mortgage." I cut him off gently but firmly. "It's over. Payments canceled. You'll get the notice soon enough." "What? You can't just—" "I can?" My voice was calm, almost soft. "And I did." Another pause. I could hear the faint hiss of his hand over the receiver, whispering to Angela. Then back, clipped and frustrated. "You're making a mistake, Ed. That's going to put them in a very difficult position." "They put me in one for 5 years," I said. "Now it's even." He tried to recover, a sputter, a half-formed plea. I ended the call. The landline went dead with a clean, satisfying click. Outside, snow kept falling, soft but steady. A plow groaned somewhere down the hill, scattering salt and grit in a slow metallic scrape. The rest of the morning I cleaned, not because the house needed it, but because I needed to move. I dusted Maria's bookshelves, tightened the back door's loose hinge, swept the porch steps clean. Each task small, deliberate, grounding, proof the world still existed outside the humiliation of last night. Every so often my eyes drifted to the photo above the fireplace. Maria's gaze, captured decades ago, felt sharper today. She'd never been one for pity. Her eyes said, "Do the right thing, Ed." Steel behind the softness. By noon, the calls had mutated into texts. From Evan, "Grandpa, we need to talk. Call me." From Angela, "Dad, please stop this. Think about family." Then an unfamiliar number, unknown pleas or veiled threats. Each ping felt like someone knocking from far away, but I didn't answer. I scrolled them slowly, like reading graffiti in a bathroom stall, messy, desperate, commanding in disguise. Then I set the phone down. Instead, I opened my laptop. The screen flared cold and bright in the winter-dim room. New document. Timeline of payments. The cursor blinked like a tiny metronome, daring me. I started typing. Dates, amounts, check numbers. Next column, screenshot names. Another, scanned receipts. The file grew heavy, each line a nail hammered into a coffin built from their entitlement. This wasn't revenge to wound. This was truth being gathered, a truth they wouldn't be able to spin or soften. Midway through, a memory blindsided me. Evan, at 14, lanky and unsure, jogging up to me in a grocery store parking lot after his first job interview. "They said I was too young, Grandpa," he'd said, voice cracking but hopeful. "But you always told me to try." I had knelt to his level, told him about grit and worth and how a man shows up. He'd hugged me hard then. That boy is now gone, replaced by the man in a 400 sweater who slid me a retirement brochure like eviction papers. I stopped typing, rubbed my temples hard enough to hurt, and muttered to the kitchen's empty air, "Where'd you go, kid?" By 3 in the afternoon, the snowfall had stopped. Outside, the street gleamed like a blank sheet of paper waiting for the first line of ink. My Ford idled at the curb, engine humming low and steady, heater fogging the windshield edges. I had somewhere to be, not the bank, not Angela's house, the county courthouse. The drive downtown was quiet. Bridges arched over the Monongahela, steel ribs against a cold sky. Old office buildings stood soot-streaked and unbowed. Bars flicked on neon signs, even though the day was still pale. Places that knew sorrow doesn't wait until night. I parked across from the Allegheny County Recorder of Deeds, a blocky, stone-faced building I'd passed 100 times, but never entered. The air bit sharp when I stepped out. Boots squeaked against tile once I was inside, each step echoing among muted voices. A couple in front of me argued softly about property lines, their words slipping like dull knives. When the clerk finally called me forward, I slid my ID across the counter. My voice was steady, quiet, but firm. "I need certified copies of a mortgage deed and release of lien for this address," I said, giving Angela and Martin's street number. Keys clacked, printers hummed. The clerk didn't look up as she asked. $5 each. I paid cash. Crisp bills, no hesitation. She stamped and slid the papers back, each page warm and smelling faintly of toner and bureaucracy. Back in the truck, I opened the envelope. There it was. My name. Co-signer. My name on the deed. My name on the release of Leon. My name like a quiet watermark through every page. Hard proof of every silent dollar. Proof of every inch of power they thought they held, but that had, in truth, come from me. I ran my thumb over the raised seal, small, ridged, almost like the trigger of something long kept on safety. I slid the documents carefully into my briefcase alongside the growing timeline, papers layered like armor. Then I sat for a long time, engine idling, watching the courthouse doors swing open and closed. People rushed in with problems and rushed out with answers they hoped were enough. Somewhere in my chest, something heavy clicked into place. Not anger, not grief, certainty. This wasn't about being pitied anymore. This was about being believed. And that, I thought, would come soon enough. Christmas Eve arrived with brutal clarity. No wind, no storm, just a stillness so sharp it made every sound carry farther than it should. The distant hum of tires, a single dog bark echoing somewhere down the street, the squeak of my boots on hard-packed snow, the kind of night where even a whisper could feel like a broadcast. Across the river and up the manicured hills, their house glowed like a storefront display. Big bay windows spilled warm gold into the cold. A wreath, fake, perfect, too symmetrical, hung on the glossy red door. SUVs lined the driveway nose to tail, a parade of polished success. Extra cars spilled into the street, hazards blinking as their owners balanced foil-wrapped dishes and bottles of wine. Salt crunched under designer boots. Laughter drifted through the frozen air. Through the picture window, I could see it, the long dining table, dressed to impress. Linen so crisp it probably crackled to the touch. Crystal stemware sparkling like cut ice. Candles flickering soft and safe. 12 chairs, one conspicuously empty. Mine. Angela's Christmas party was in full swing. So was the reckoning. I eased the Ford to the curb across the street, beneath a lonely street lamp that flickered on and off like it hadn't decided if tonight was worth staying awake for. I let the engine idle down to silence, put the truck in park, and sat for a breath so long it misted the windshield. Then I popped the glove box. The black leather briefcase waited inside, scuffed, corners worn smooth by years of union meetings and plant negotiations. 20 years ago, it carried safety reports and contract proposals. Tonight, it carried something heavier. I clicked it open. Inside were 12 neat packets, paper-clipped and deliberate, each a tiny bomb built from truth. Inside each packet, the 5-year payment timeline I'd built line by line. Screenshots of every transfer from my retirement fund. Certified copies of the mortgage deed and release of lien. Side-by-side images of my withdrawals and their mortgage confirmations. And on top, glossy printout of Angela's Facebook party invite. Our first full holiday hosting in the house we built together. Built, yes, just not by them. I took a breath so deep it scraped cold into my chest, then stepped out into the night. The air bit into my knuckles, windless but sharp enough to make my eyes sting. Their front walk was perfectly salted. Lights traced the roofline, blinking in programmed rhythm. The door, of course, was unlocked. This neighborhood liked to pretend it was safe, tucked away from every hard truth. I stepped inside quietly. Warmth hit me first, dry heat mixed with perfume, pine from a fake tree, the faint sweetness of spiced wine. Voices floated from the dining room. Laughter, forks chiming, someone tapping a glass for attention. A woman's voice rose mid-story. And then I told her, well, that's not how our family does things. That word again. Our, as if I'd been voted out. I stopped just behind the archway, half hidden by garland. 12 faces turned toward me at once. Conversation died in a clean, hard snap. Angela went pale. Martin half rose from his chair, hands stalled midair, Evan's face locked into a stone mask. "Evening," I said, calm as the snow outside. "Hope I'm not too late." Silence stretched. A chair scraped softly, someone half standing, unsure. "Dad," Angela managed, voice tight, brittle. "This is really not the time. I'll only take 5 minutes," I said even. "Promise." I walked to the buffet sideboard and set down the briefcase. The click of the latches sounded louder than it should in the hush. One of the guests, Isabella's mother, I remembered vaguely, tried to smooth things with a polite smile. "We were just sitting down to dessert." "I won't be eating," I said, "just sharing." I turned, picked up the first packet, and placed it into the hands of the guest nearest me, then the next, and the next. 12 packets in all, moving clockwise around the table, like cards in a solemn game. Paper whispered as each was taken, hesitant, confused, but too polite to refuse. Then only the sound of pages turning. Flip, rustle, flip. I waited, hands folded loosely in front of me. The man across from Evan, older, sharp suit, maybe Martin's boss, frowned down at the numbers. "These are my mortgage payments?" "Receipts," I said. "My receipts." Someone else muttered low, but not low enough. $240,000? Martin shoved back his chair, face red. "This is inappropriate." Angela stood with him, eyes shiny, breath sharp. "Dad, you're making a scene." "I was erased at this table," I said softly. "I figured I could at least interrupt it once." Evan finally broke his silence. His jaw set, voice clipped. "Grandpa, this isn't how adults handle things." I turned to him slowly. "Son, you slid a mortgage statement at me like a hotel bill. Told me to find a retirement condo. You made your vote. These people deserve to know who actually built your podium." His hands curled into fists at his sides. "This was a gift. You offered to help." I nodded once. "And you offered me a brochure for a facility with on-site grief counseling." Angela let out a small cry, muffled by her hand. Martin draped an arm around her shoulders, protective, as if they were the wounded ones here. One of the guests, silver-haired, elegant in a velvet shawl, cleared her throat and looked at Angela gently but firmly. "Angela, did you really not tell anyone who funded the house?" Angela stared down at the tablecloth, voice tiny. "It's complicated." "No," I said, steady. "It's arithmetic." I walked to the head of the table. picked up the one packet I'd kept aside, laid it in front of Evan with quiet finality. "Page 7, I told him. "Routing number. Matches my account." He didn't look, didn't move. "I canceled the payments 3 days ago," I added, voice low but clear. "You'll get the notice Monday. Maybe it's already sitting in your inbox." A ripple ran through the table. Low murmurs, paper shuffling, wine glasses setting down hard. Some guests closed the packet quickly, embarrassed to look further. Others read faster, eyes widening. "I didn't want to do this here," I said. "But you did it here first?" For a moment, no one breathed. No one moved. I stepped back, gathered my coat from the peg by the door. The buttons felt small and deliberate under my fingers. Each click of plastic through fabric was a closing door. From somewhere down the table, a voice, quiet, almost kind, asked, "Where will you spend Christmas?" I paused at the threshold, hand on the knob, looked back just enough to answer, "In peace," I said, and I left. The door closed behind me with a gentle final click, louder in the still night than any slammed door could have been. Outside, the cold hit like truth, sharp, cleansing. The wind had picked up, scattering snow across the salted walk. My breath hung in white clouds as I stepped off the curb, briefcase steady in my hand, and crossed to the truck. Behind me, the rumble started, voices rising. Evan's shout, raw and panicked. Angela's sob breaking through. Martin's barked questions, how I'd gotten the documents, how I'd dared. Guests murmuring, gasping, chairs scraping. The entire perfect tableau cracking apart in real time. I slid behind the wheel, shut the door with a solid thump, sat for one heartbeat longer, listening to the muffled chaos drift through their glowing windows. Then, despite everything, I smiled. Some gifts arrive late. Some justice comes wrapped, not in ribbons, but in paper and proof, dropped like a truth bomb in front of 12 witnesses with wine glasses half full. This year, I gave them the one thing they never expected, the truth. You'd think revenge feels loud, like a slammed door, or a courtroom gavel, or a man shouting through a megaphone. But that night, after I left their glowing house and the hum of that fake perfect dinner party, revenge felt like silence, warm silence, earned silence. I drove home through the empty streets of Pittsburgh. Snow dusted the blacktop in fine powder, catching the headlights and scattering light like tiny sparks. The wipers squeaked, slow, steady, almost meditative. Every click of the blinker was loud in the hush. I realized I'd been holding my breath for miles and let it go in one long, shaking exhale. The porch light flickered as I pulled in. Still broken, still mine, still honest. I climbed the steps, boots leaving blunt prints in the snow. Inside, I hung my coat, the old fabric still cold against my neck, and kicked off my boots. The house smelled faintly of cedar and thyme. I reached for the bottle of whiskey Maria and I had opened on our 30th anniversary. Only a glass or two had remained, saved for something special. This night was special enough. I poured the last of it, amber catching the lamplight, and carried it to the front window. Lights off. Only the snow outside drifting sideways like ash. No police, no reporters, no furious knock on the door. Just the quiet pulse of a house that finally belonged to me alone. Revenge wasn't noise, it was peace. Morning came gray and hushed. The snow muffled everything, even the sound of the mail truck grinding up the hill. When I finally reached for my phone, the screen nearly blinded me. 37 missed calls. 6 from Evan, 12 from Angela, 1 from Martin. The rest unknown. Friends, guests, gossips. The voicemail from Angela came at 1:34 a.m. Her voice cracked and small. "Dad, what did you do? People are talking. They're asking questions. I don't know what to tell them. I don't know how to fix this." Fix. There it was again, as if I had broken something. At noon, a knock. Not pounding, not frantic. Just as a human knock. Careful. Hoping. I opened the door to Evan. No coat. Sat jacket wrinkled, shirt half untucked, eyes swollen, ringed red like he'd slept in a car, or not at all. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice thin. I stepped aside. He moved into the living room like a soldier entering a minefield. Slow, scanning for danger, he looked around as if seeing it for the first time. The worn recliner patched twice on the arm, the rug Maria loved, though it never matched anything, the framed photo of her above the mantel, and next to it, a new one. Me with Rosa and her grandkids at Easter, laughing loud, plates piled high. A room that wasn't perfect, but alive. He swallowed. I saw the spreadsheet. His hands trembled slightly. The one with the totals? I waited. I added it up again, just to be sure. He looked up, shame bare in his face. 241,300. Silence swelled between us. Heavy, but clean. He met my eyes. And for the first time in years, I didn't see the polished man who wore expensive watches and handed out orders. I saw a boy again. The kid who used to clutch a baseball glove bigger than his arm. The boy who once thought I could fix anything. "I'm sorry." His voice broke on the word. "I don't even know where to start." I set my coffee down. "How about here? Why'd you do it?" He sat on the edge of the couch, shoulders caved. "I don't know. I just assumed you'd always be there. That money didn't mean much to you, like love came with a blank check and you didn't mind writing it. Because I loved you," I said quietly. "Not because I was stupid." He nodded fast, tears close now. "I know that. I swear I know that now." "And Angela," he flinched. "She's not talking to me? Not since last night. Says I let you make her look like a liar in front of people she respects." "She was a liar," I said even. He didn't argue. Just stared down at his hands, knuckles pale. "The mortgage," he whispered. "We're going to lose the house. That's not my problem anymore." "I know." His voice wavered but didn't plead. "But I was hoping maybe we could start over, somehow." "You want money?" I asked flat. "No." His head snapped up. "God, no, I just want a chance to fix things. Not with checks. With actions." I leaned back, studying him. This man who'd forgotten the cost of love, and now seemed to finally feel its weight. "Tell me something, Evan. Anything. What would Maria say if she saw you slide that mortgage statement across my table?" His face crumpled. She'd cry." "No." My voice stayed low but sure. "She'd stand up. She'd tell you to grab your jacket and walk out of your own dinner." A laugh slipped from him. Short, bitter, wet with regret. "You're probably right. Damn straight I'm right." We sat there in a silence only blood can hold. Not empty but charged. Finally I spoke. "I forgive you." His head lifted fast. "You do?" "Yes. But that doesn't mean we go back to how it was. Forgiveness just means you get a chance to earn your way forward. You want to rebuild? Show up. Without expecting applause. Or a payout." He nodded slowly, like a man signing an invisible contract. "I will." I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 mugs of coffee. No cream, no sugar, just black. The way Maria used to serve it on cold mornings when the mill whistle still ruled our days. I handed him one. He cradled it with both hands, as if warmth itself might forgive him. "You know," I said, leaning against the counter, "this porch is cracked all the way through." He looked up quickly. "You want help with it?" "Want?" "No." I let a small smile break. "Need?" "Maybe." A tentative smile flickered back. Small, but real. The first honest thing I'd seen on his face in years. Just like that, a page turned. Not clean, not perfect, but forward. Later, after he left, the house settled into its familiar quiet. I pulled on my coat and stepped onto the old porch. The boards creaked, but held. The evening sky over Pittsburgh blushed gold behind the bare trees. Somewhere down the street, a neighbor wrestled Christmas lights onto a fence, kids laughing and throwing handfuls of snow that missed more than they hit. The cold bit at my cheeks. Alive and bracing, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. Rosa, dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their school. Projects. I type back. Slow but certain. Wouldn't miss it. I slipped the phone away, wrapped both hands around the cooling coffee mug, and watched a single car roll beneath the street lamp. Headlights glowing, tires whispering over snow. Some roads don't lead back, but the right ones lead forward, and I was done chasing love that made me small. The future stretched wide and quiet. The past had a price tag, and they'd paid it, in full. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments.